The second that door closes, your life as you knew it is over. It's not like the movies. There's no big dramatic echo, just a heavy final clunk. And right there, in that silence, you realize you've just been buried alive.
What would it be like to spend years locked in a room the size of a parking space? To have every single second of your day dictated by a brutal, unchanging routine, where your only human interaction is a voice shouting through a solid steel door. This isn't a hypothetical. For thousands of people in American prisons, this is daily reality. In Texas, a state with one of the largest prison systems in the country, they call it administrative segregation. It's a world of extreme isolation, where inmates are confined to a tiny cell for 22 or 23 hours a day, sometimes for years, or even decades. We're going to show you what that hidden world is really like, from the crushing routine to the shocking psychological toll it takes on a human being. This is the side of prison life you rarely get to see, told by the people who have lived it. If you believe these stories need to be told, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It helps ensure this content reaches a wider audience. The cell, a world in 60 square feet. Imagine the smallest room in your house. Now imagine living your entire life there. For inmates in Texas's high security facilities, like the Allen B. Polunsky unit that houses death row, home is a concrete and steel box that's only about 60 square feet. To give you some perspective, that's roughly the size of two king-size mattresses pushed together. A person can take maybe 3 steps forward, turn around, and take 3 steps back. That's it. Inside this box, the world shrinks. There's a steel slab for a bed, usually with a thin, worn-out mattress. A combination toilet and sink is bolted in the corner, offering zero privacy. While rules vary, personal property is often severely restricted. Maybe a few legal papers, a religious text, and a handful of letters. In many cells, there are no TVs, no radios, no personal electronics. The only view of the outside world is a narrow sliver of glass in the solid steel door, which stays closed almost the entire day. The design itself is a tool of isolation. Thick concrete walls are built to muffle sound and prevent any visual contact between inmates, creating an environment of near total sensory deprivation. This isn't just a cell. It's an environment engineered to break down human connection and erase the world outside. It's a place built not for rehabilitation, but for total, suffocating control. Life in solitary is an exercise in brutal monotony. The day is governed by a rigid schedule that never, ever changes. It's a relentless loop of waking, waiting, and sleeping. A log from one former inmate shows the oppressive sameness. Wake up at 4:45 a.m. Wait for the first count at 6:30 a.m. Clean the cell. Wait for the next count, all the way until the final count at 10:50 p.m. Meals are never social. They're pushed through a small slot in the steel door, often called the bean slot. Inmates eat alone in their cells, every single time. Sometimes the food is served at bizarre hours, as early as 2 a.m., a practice some believe is meant to discourage people from even bothering to eat. The most anticipated event of the day is also the most tragic: recreation. For 1 hour, an inmate might be allowed out, but this isn't a walk in a yard. It's being moved from one cage to a slightly larger cage, often outdoors, but still completely alone. Sometimes, 2 inmates might be in adjacent cages, close enough to shout a conversation. They might even try to play a makeshift game of basketball with separate hoops, a bizarre pantomime of human interaction. Every single movement is controlled. Any trip outside the cell, for a shower or a medical visit, requires shackles and an escort of multiple guards. This constant grinding routine is punctuated only by the ritual of the count. Several times a day and through the night, everything stops as guards visually confirm every inmate is in their cell. It's a constant reminder. You're not a person. You're inventory. Humans are social creatures. We're wired for connection, for conversation, for touch. Solitary confinement systematically dismantles that wiring. In many of Texas's most restrictive units, contact with family and other inmates is completely cut off. For years, even decades, a person can go without a handshake, a hug, or any affirming human touch. Communication is reduced to its most primitive forms. Inmates have to shout through solid steel doors or yell into ventilation systems, their voices echoing in the concrete hallways. One former prisoner described it as the continued screaming, the crying, pleading, and gibberish people yell 24 hours a day. It's very unnerving. Visits from family are a painful reminder of this isolation. Contact visits are forbidden. Loved ones sit on the other side of a thick glass partition, speaking through a telephone as guards monitor and record every word. One man in a Texas solitary unit went 17 years without any physical contact with his wife, his children, or his parents. His entire relationship with his family was just a voice on a phone and a face behind glass. This profound lack of contact isn't an accident. It creates a silent, sterile world where the normal bonds of human society just wither and die. As one inmate put it, you go crazy just wanting someone to talk to. If the physical conditions are brutal, the psychological toll is catastrophic. Experts and former inmates all agree. Prolonged solitary confinement is a form of mental torture. The UN's own guidelines, known as the Mandela Rules, state that holding someone in isolation for more than 15 consecutive days is considered prolonged solitary confinement. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture has said this can amount to torture or other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Historically in Texas, hundreds of inmates have been held in solitary for more than a decade. Researchers have a descriptive term for the condition it produces, SHU syndrome, named for the security housing units where solitary is practiced. The symptoms are devastating. One landmark study of inmates in isolation found widespread and intense anxiety, paranoia, hallucinations, and chronic depression. In that study, 91% of inmates experienced anxiety, and 70% felt on the verge of an emotional breakdown. The sensory deprivation becomes so extreme that any small stimulus, a guard's keys jingling, a distant shout, can feel overwhelming. Inmates describe a slow-motion descent into madness. One said, "I have started forgetting who certain people are. It's like being in a cell this long has started making me lose hope." Another wrote, "I've had youngsters back here who called me Pops. I've heard them lose their young minds in short periods of time." Self-harm and suicide attempts become tragically common. Some inmates will cut themselves, not to die, but just to feel something real, to see their own blood and remember they're still human. It's a constant, grinding war where the only enemy is your own deteriorating mind. There's a point in this unending psychological battle where the will to live just evaporates. For some, the breaking point is a sudden, violent act. One man described seeing his best friends completely lose their minds. Another witnessed a young man, with only 2 years left on his sentence, hang himself because he just couldn't bear the isolation any longer. These moments aren't just tragedies. They are the predictable outcomes of a system that pushes the human mind past its breaking point. For others, the end doesn't come with a bang, but with a quiet surrender. On Texas's death row, where all inmates are held in solitary, some have chosen to waive their legal appeals. Think about that. They are voluntarily giving up their fight to live, choosing a guaranteed execution over the unending torture of life in a concrete box. When death becomes a better alternative to another day of existence, the line between punishment and outright cruelty has been completely erased. This surrender is the system achieving its unstated goal, the complete destruction of a person's hope, spirit, and will to survive. The damage from solitary confinement doesn't end when the cell door finally opens. For those who are eventually released, the psychological scars are often permanent. One major study out of North Carolina found that people who had spent time in solitary were 24% more likely to die in their first year of release than those who hadn't. Their risk of dying by suicide was a staggering 78% higher. The basic skills needed to function in society just waste away in isolation. Simple things we take for granted, like holding a conversation, making eye contact, or being in a crowd, can trigger intense anxiety and paranoia. One man released after years in a box said he struggles with his sense of direction, a basic cognitive skill eroded by years of confinement. Another inmate, preparing to go home, expressed a deep fear of reconnecting with his own family. He wrote, "I do not feel as if I could get out and have instant contact with them." The very relationships that might have sustained him had become sources of pure anxiety. This is the lingering legacy of solitary. It follows people for the rest of their lives, a prison of the mind from which there is often no escape. A cell the size of a parking space, 23 hours a day of near total isolation. Meals passed through a slot in a door, a life without human touch. This isn't a system of justice or rehabilitation. As one inmate wrote, "Isolation is torture. There can be no other word for it." While Texas has made some reforms, thousands of people remain in these conditions, caught in a system that science and international law have condemned. It leaves us with a disturbing question. What does it say about us as a society that we allow for the systematic unraveling of thousands of human minds hidden away behind concrete walls? The damage inflicted in these silent, sterile boxes extends far beyond the prison gates, leaving a trail of broken lives and challenging our own sense of humanity. What are your thoughts on this system? Is it a necessary evil for security, or a form of cruel and unusual punishment that needs to be abolished? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you believe this kind of journalism is important, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that matter.